Cassie works as a bartender and also plays music. Luke is training with the Marines and getting ready to go to Iraq. At night, Cassie and her band perform at the bar for extra money. One evening, some Marines visit the bar. Cassie recognizes Frankie and greets him with a hug. She introduces Frankie to her friend Nora, mentioning she used to babysit him, which embarrasses Frankie. Frankie's friend Luke orders a Coke, and Cassie teases him about it. The other Marines joke that Cassie likes Luke. When Cassie returns, another Marine, Armando, makes a rude comment that offends her, causing her to leave. Luke follows to apologize, but Cassie thinks he's just another guy trying to hit on her. Luke insists they're not all the same, and they argue. Luke accuses Cassie of being a privileged girl who criticizes the war while soldiers like him do the hard work. Cassie angrily dismisses his comments and walks away. Cassie goes to find Nora, asking her to cover while she takes her insulin shot because she's diabetic. The next day, Cassie struggles to pay for a new insulin shot at the pharmacy, since her insurance won't cover it for a few days. The cashier, a bit rude, tells her she needs to pay in cash. Cassie's mother, who is with her, offers some money, but it's not enough. Cassie leaves the store, telling the cashier she'll try to manage without the shot for 4 days, even though it could be dangerous for her. Later, Luke goes for a run, but almost gets hit by a car. When the driver corners him, it turns out to be Jarrow, an old acquaintance. Jarrow reminds Luke that he owes him 15 grand and mentions he knows where Luke's family is, which irritates Luke. Jarrow then says he's just joking. When Cassie's mother visits her home, she discovers Cassie owes rent. She scolds Cassie for living like this and suggests she move back home. Cassie insists she can't go backward and isn't a child anymore, but her mother accuses her of not taking things seriously. Cassie snaps and explains she's working multiple jobs: bartending, delivering food, taking piano lessons, and playing music, just to pay her medical bills. She asks her mother to be more understanding. Her mom starts crying, blaming herself for not being able to help more, but Cassie comforts her, saying this tough time will pass. That night, Cassie performs at the bar. She starts feeling dizzy and heads to the bathroom. While there, she sees a Marine sticker, and an idea strikes her. The next day, Cassie visits Frankie and finds Luke at his place. Cassie bluntly tells Frankie she hopes he will marry her. Frankie thinks she's joking, but Cassie reveals she was diagnosed with diabetes 6 months ago and has been struggling to pay her bills and medical debt, which is now endangering her life. Luke, overhearing the conversation, interrupts and warns Frankie not to accept the proposal because he could get in trouble. Cassie and Luke argue, with Luke accusing her of trying to scam the government. Cassie retorts that she has no problem with that, as the government took everything from her tax-paying immigrant mother. Frankie eventually tells Cassie he can't marry her, especially since he's about to propose to his girlfriend Riley. Cassie thanks Frankie for listening and understanding. As she leaves, Luke notices her car and realizes he was wrong about her living off rich parents' money. The next day, Luke goes to his family's auto mechanic workshop. He waits until his dad leaves to avoid a confrontation. His brother, Jacob, hugs him and says their father cares, but doesn't know how to show it. Later, Luke gives Jarrow some money, but Jarrow pulls out a gun, demanding the rest. Luke tries to calm him down, mentioning his plan to marry a girl to get financial benefits from his deployment. The next day, Luke meets with Cassie. They argue about their views on marriage. Luke sees it as an act of love, while Cassie thinks it often turns lovers into enemies. They eventually agree to go ahead with the plan and pinky swear to seal the deal. Luke tells Cassie they have to maintain their cover while he's in Iraq, and then file for divorce after a year. Before deploying, Luke picks Cassie up for a pre-wedding shoot. At her house, he learns she likes music, and they start talking. After the shoot, they go to court for their wedding, with Frankie as their witness. Frankie gives them the ring he bought for Riley, saying he's not ready to propose until he returns. After the wedding, Cassie joins the Marines in their pre-deployment celebration. They try to act close in front of everyone else. During the celebration, Cassie and Armando argue over a racist comment he made. Luke, feeling angry, steps outside and Cassie follows. He tells her Armando is being difficult, but since it's their last night before deployment, she didn't need to escalate the situation. When Luke sees their friends watching, he pulls Cassie close and they hug to make it seem like they're just settling a lover's quarrel. Before heading to war, each soldier's spouse stays in the base lodge. Luke tells Cassie he ordered 2 beds, but she doesn't believe him, thinking he's interested in her. He assures her he's not, but she sees through his act and acknowledges his fear about the situation. Eventually, he admits his fear, and they share an intimate moment before making love. The next morning, Cassie drives Luke to the base and watches him board the bus. They share a kiss for the crowd, and he reminds her to keep up appearances by calling each other regularly. He asks her to contact his brother if anything happens to him. When Cassie returns home, she sends Luke a message explaining why she loves music. Cassie pours her heart out to Luke in a message, explaining how music has always been her way of expressing pain since childhood. However, she confesses she struggles to sing about her own emotions, so she sticks to covering other people's songs to avoid confronting her feelings. In response, Luke shares his passion for running and reveals that he joined the military because of his father's influence. He recounts how his father left the military to care for his sick mother, shaping his views on marriage and military service, although he admits he's now doing it for himself. As they continue to exchange messages, they open up about their life experiences, growing closer with each conversation. During a video call, Cassie shares with the soldiers a song she's been working on, but promises to perform it when she's ready. In a moment of vulnerability, Cassie and Luke confess their love for each other, although it seems partly to maintain their cover. Later, Cassie turns to her band to work on the song she wrote about Luke, which focuses on people with loved ones serving in the war. During another video call with Luke, she notices the soldiers' low spirits after one of their own is injured. They ask her to sing her song to lift their morale, and she gladly obliges. The soldiers are moved by Cassie's song at the festival and express their gratitude for her heartfelt lyrics. Excitedly, Cassie tells Luke she sent her songs to some people and landed a spot for her band at a big festival, which fills him with pride for her. At the festival, Cassie's performance captivates the crowd, earning her band newfound admiration. Meanwhile, the young soldiers continue their patrols and missions in the deserted streets of Iraq. During a late-night mission, the soldiers come under attack, resulting in casualties. Back home, Cassie repeatedly tries to call Luke to share the news that the song she wrote for him is gaining popularity, but only reaches his voicemail. One night, after a gig at the bar, Cassie receives a call from the military informing her that Luke has been injured and is undergoing surgery. Panicked, she searches for Jacob, Luke's brother. Unable to find him, she tracks down Morrow, Luke's father, despite Luke's warning not to contact him. Morrow, unaware of Luke's enlistment, refuses to disclose Jacob's whereabouts and demands to know what trouble Luke has gotten into. Cassie reluctantly reveals that Luke was injured in Iraq, shocking Morrow, who had no knowledge of Luke's deployment. Morrow is taken aback when Cassie reveals she's Luke's wife, but he quickly gathers the family to go visit Luke at the hospital. Upon arrival, Luke is surprised to see his father. Morrow confronts him about not disclosing his enlistment, but Luke explains he wanted to prove his father wrong. Alone with Cassie, Luke apologizes for her contacting his dad and suggests they divorce to avoid suspicion. However, he realizes his father is already becoming suspicious and insists they maintain their cover, as Morrow, being in military police, might report them. Luke also shares the tragic news that Frankie lost his life in the war, prompting Cassie to run outside in tears. Once Luke's wound heals, Morrow offers to drive them home and even suggests taking Luke to physical training regularly, which they initially decline but eventually accept. Back at Cassie's home, she and Luke argue about the rapid changes in their lives and the necessity of living together to avoid a court-martial. The next day, Morrow arrives to pick up Luke, prompting the fake couple to hurriedly arrange Luke's things to create the illusion of a happy home. Meanwhile, Cassie performs a new song for a potential label, expressing her frustration at doing things she once laughed at. The audience loves it, and the label offers her a contract. Meanwhile, Luke gets a call from John Mano, demanding payment and mentioning Cassie's debt since they're married. Days later, Cassie returns home to find Luke walking with a cane, a significant improvement. She discovers he's fixed her doorknob and offers a strained thank you. Luke reassures her it's okay to thank him and still be a feminist, leading to playful banter about control issues and intelligence. They decide to play a game holding hot peppers in their mouths, which Luke loses. Cassie helps him clean up, suggesting he take a bath to soothe his leg pain. In the bathtub, she comforts him, promising he'll run again, and they share an intimate moment before sleeping embraced. Weeks later, Cassie joins Luke for a cookout with his family. Haley, Jacob's wife, asks Cassie if they plan to have kids, noting Cassie's fond gaze at Luke. Later that night, Luke answers a call on Cassie's phone from her mother, who informs them that Cassie's home was broken into. Luke receives a threatening call from John Dano, demanding payment or he'll involve the authorities. Upon returning home, Cassie collapses, and Luke realizes she hasn't been eating due to her busy concert schedule. Luke rushes to get Cassie glucose and holds her in his arms as she admits she's finally allowing him to help her and has let go of her need for control. The next morning, Luke sneaks out to confront Jarrow and settle the debt. He then visits Frankie's grave, expressing his longing and declaring Cassie as his best friend. Returning home, Luke finds Cassie packing to move out. She reveals that Jarrow contacted her mother about Luke's debt, causing her anger. Luke confesses his past struggles with addiction and theft, explaining the situation with Jarrow. Despite his efforts to calm her, Cassie insists on divorcing him, fearing for her mother's safety. Disturbed, Cassie performs at a show that night with intense emotion. Meanwhile, Luke pushes himself to run despite his still healing leg. Cassie's emotional performance contrasts with Luke's physical struggle as he pushes himself until his body gives out. After Cassie's stellar performance, her label informs her that a big Hollywood star wants them to perform at the Hollywood Bowl, thrilling the band. Meanwhile, a soldier arrives to detain Luke. That night, Cassie receives a call from Morrow, seeking confirmation about Luke's detention due to their fake marriage. Cassie admits there was truth in their relationship, leading Morrow to express disappointment, hoping Cassie would bring out the best in his son. On the day of Luke's hearing, he insists on addressing the court, admitting he coerced Cassie into marrying him to protect her from prosecution. Despite his lawyer's objections, Luke's confession results in a 6-month detention sentence. Meanwhile, Cassie reminisces over their wedding videos before her performance at the Hollywood Bowl. Morrow informs Luke he will still receive a Purple Heart, a symbol of honor for injured soldiers. During her performance, Cassie sings about discovering love through someone who cherishes every part of her. Afterward, she rushes to the military detention center, where Luke is saying goodbye to his family. Cassie declares her commitment to their marriage, expressing her desire to wait for him and share their lives together. Luke tearfully reciprocates their love, and their families cheer them on. 6 months later, Luke is released from detention, and they finally have a proper honeymoon at the beach. The story ends with their newfound happiness and commitment to each other.